Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin. We, the species. I love saying that, we, the species, and not to be too cryptic, but as time goes on, it becomes more and more and more important. And today, I'm actually kind of chomping at the bit because Glen Olson and I are kind of brothers. We're brothers in the world of Bold Authors Network, administered and founded by Kae Wagner, who's a dear, dear friend of mine, and actually a collaborator, because Kae and I collaborated on my book, which I might as well show. Um, 10 Things I Learned from the Billionaire, because I worked for the world's richest Italian for 25 years and learned a lot of stuff. And Kae was the piece of energy that got me to do this. And it's with Bold Authors Network that I met Glen Olson, and great chemistry. And of course, when you're in a group and we have meetings every Monday from 4 to 5, it's a wonderful group. Kay's amazing. Glen's there, I'm here, but you never really, it's 4 to 5, boom, and you never really get a chance. So chemistry and energies and particulates from the universe got us together. We zoomed a while back, and I realized uh, this would be one hell of an interview. And by the way, this is one hell of an interview, and this is continuing my Johnny Carson monologue. Uh, and I said this to Glenn just a couple minutes ago, and I wasn't pandering, patronizing or anything, but Glenn's life is a movie. And why is it a movie? Well, because he grew up grew up in Southern California. And of all things, I guess there was a friend. You can clarify better than me, but there was a friend whose father was in aerospace and and had a mimeograph machine, and he loved it, and that was his first foray into quote writing as a kid, and then he drifted into, and he'll tell you, into the Los Angeles Fire Department and stuff, and from there, and he's a world-class scuba guy and motorcycling and his adventures, and now he's a very accomplished writer. He's doing some science fiction stuff. We're going to talk about that. So this, by the way, there was a TV show, Glenn, maybe before your time, maybe not. This Is Your Life. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes,
Yes, Ralph
I do.
Edwards. This is your life. And this is your life. What a fabulous life it is. So my monologue is officially concluded. This is great. So much thanks for being here. Why don't you say whatever you want to say, and then we will talk.
Hello, Calvin. Thank you ever so much for inviting me onto your podcast. This is going to be so exciting. Hi, I'm Glen Olson. As Calvin said, I didn't start off to have an adventurous life. It just sort of, one step at a time. Um, oh, what's that next thing? I always wondered what was around the next bend, what was over the next hilltop. And I just sort of did some wandering and got a lot of information and got a lot of life experiences, which at the end of the day, we're going to find out I put into a lot of my novels and a lot of my writing. And oh, by the way, I just want to say I have your latest book. There's a tortoise in my hair.
Thank you.
Now, now my favorite writing unicorn uh, loves your book.
Oh, that's
I
great.
have to get into it. I have to take it away from her. Why do I have a unicorn on my desk? Well, this was given to me by my stepdaughter, and it's as she wanders the world, and she's been wandering the world. This watches over me and makes sure I do my work. So I have to report to the unicorn. Anyway, thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation today and for me getting to know more about your latest book. There's a tortoise in my hair.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We our fearless leader, Kae Wagner, always talks about visibility and visibility, and metadata and all this stuff. So this is visibility. You held up the book. I'm going to hold up the book. I think it's an important book. I really do, for a lot of reasons, because I'm here and I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to people all over the world. And by the way, this little podcast, I might as well plug myself. 3 different AIs ranked this podcast in endurance and longevity in the top 0.5 to 2% in the world, because I'm approaching my 6th year of this and my 500th, um, 6 continents. So, doing the right thing. Okay, enough. Enough promotion. Let's talk.
Okay.
Your as I mentioned briefly, your writing journey began with a neighborhood newspaper in the '60s. How do you think that experience like shaped your future?
Um, I wouldn't have thought so at the time, but every step we take along life gives us both skills and experience and opens up new ideas that you can look forward to the next step. So what you're referring to, Calvin, is that I was a child growing up in the San Fernando Valley, which is a suburb of Los Angeles in the 1960s, during the height of the Cold War. A lot of aerospace companies. My best friend's dad worked for an aerospace company. They were building military aircraft and things like that. But he was one of those really high tech engineer kind of guys, and he had in his own home a mimeograph machine. I don't know if everyone remembers what a mimeograph machine was, but it was a machine which had a drum and had ink in it, and you would cut a stencil, which would be a page of print, and you could run off copies of it. And it was unusual for a private individual to have one of those at that time, but he had one. And who was my best friend's father, and my best friend and I said, oh, we're 10. And we said, what can we do with Dad's mimeograph machine? I know, let's put together a neighborhood newspaper. And so I know that it kept us out of trouble. We had no idea about cost of materials or distribution or anything. We just started, and my friend's father let us have full use of the mimeograph machine. Now, my friend Steve, we also found out that you can pretend to be a lot more different people than you really are, and that's something that shows up a lot in social media and stuff. You can have multiple identities. So my friend Steve was the publisher. He was also one of the reporters. I was a crack reporter under my own name. I also wrote the Safety Sam column. Um, and I was a junior reporter, on another page, and we just put together a lot of stories, but there was still room to fill. So I started writing my first science fiction story, called uh, uh, Death in the 27th Galaxy, excuse me, Death in the 27th Galaxy, or Vacuum is Mighty Thin Stuff. And it was a serial running in the newspaper. Um,
When'd you write that?
and
As a kid, of course.
as a kid, at 10 and 11 years old, I thought I would do that. We had to fill up space on the page. So I made up this story as we were going along, and, no editing or anything like that. Editing, what's that? But so we put out copies of the newspaper and walked around the neighborhood and sold it at door, and people bought it for like 10 cents a copy, 5 cents a copy.
Wow.
And I thought it was safely forgotten. As I became a teenager, went on with my life, it says, okay, nobody will ever know about that. My mom had saved every copy
Wow.
and found it in her closet one day
Wow.
after she had passed away. And goes, oh my God, what's that? My dad said, your mom was very proud of you. Oh, she never said anything. She bought every copy. So I
Wow.
didn't I didn't think of that as practice uh, for a career in writing, but then I went on with my life, and you alluded to some of the things that I've done, and it says I've actually had 4 careers in my life. Um, when I was attempting to work my way through college, I spent some part of the time as a truck driver. So I would range around the Southland area. And so I learned the skills of a truck driver, how to drive a big truck, how to read the road, things like that. Um, but I wanted to stay closer to home and try to kind of finish my schooling. I wanted to be a marine biologist. Um, and so I switched professions. And I may tell you a little later why I did this. This was from advice from my dad. But I switched professions and trained up to become a meat cutter of all things. I was an apprentice meat cutter for a year, became a journeyman meat cutter. That um, that helped me out. And then this opportunity came by for what I thought of was, oh, just a short-term job. The fire department was hiring people that they wanted to train as paramedics. Well, I had a background in biology. I knew how to drive a truck already. You drive pretty big trucks in the fire department. Um, I had lots of practical experience, so I went down and I took the test, and of all things, I passed it. And then I passed all the background interviews and I passed all the, and they offered me a job. Oh, okay. So I went on to training, through the academy, went to paramedic school, started integrating all the things that I'd been doing before that. Now I can already drive a big truck. I already know some biology and physiology. Now I know more. And I've got all these sort of abilities gel together. And I was helping out my city by being a paramedic, getting paid for it, of course. And it was just a lot of fun. I thought I was going to go on to my next career shortly after that. I'll stay a year, I'll stay 2 years, I'll do something like that. About 5 years into this job, I look around and say, gee, I'm not going anywhere. I've skipped the chance to take my next stint of college. What am I doing here? Oh, I realize it's not a summer job anymore. It has turned into a career. I was having that much enjoyment out of it and doing things that felt important. And so I stayed. But my feet were always little restless. So I just didn't stay a paramedic. I started going up the promotional ladder, becoming, an inspector, a disaster preparedness trainer, eventually a captain. And during that time in my career as in the fire department, I had to write training bulletins and source material for various kinds of training. Um, and I didn't think of that as writing, but again, it's all practice. Um, I helped write the disaster preparedness manual that FEMA took nationwide in the late 1990s. Um, and, I finally looked back at everything I was doing and saying, I've also been a little bit of a storyteller. I like telling stories, things like that. Maybe I could write fiction. So I started writing fiction again. And when I retired from the fire department, I turned it into my full-time fourth career.
Wow. Uh, I already got a page of notes already from you. Congratulations, Glenn. Uh,
Thank you, Calvin.
by the way,
So you write shorthand, huh?
well, I do because when I was in pharmacy school, I had to use a lot of shorthand and stuff, and
Yes.
when I can't get rid of it, it's just part of me and stuff.
It's a
Um,
very strong life skill, sir.
Off topic, it's funny. A lot of people don't know what mimeographing is, and when you were talking about it, I remembered there's one of the more powerful visual scenes in the movie Animal House when the Deltas, Belushi's gang and Tim Matheson's gang, they they mimeograph exams back in those days. It's the 60s. So they mimeograph stuff, and they mimeograph things. So Belushi and D-Day, they jump into the garbage to look for the mimeographed, the carbon copy, whatever you want to call it. And so there's the scene, and they pull this mimeograph thing, and you see the teacher mimeographing it, but that's about
Yes.
as visual you can get to mimeographing. Anyway, by the way, the whole, running a disaster prep thing that FEMA uses is awesome. And a fire department captain. I mean, this stuff it's movie stuff. You know, it just is, Glenn. It's so fascinating. So we're gonna now move to talk about Tears of a Thousand Years, which I'm looking at the cover. Um, I love it. It's a very provocative cover. I'm holding it here. So
Thank you. Here,
you have
here,
the
I've got
real
a copy
thing.
too.
You have the real thing. Um, what inspired Tears of a Thousand Years?
Interesting about it. I hadn't thought I was going to write a new novel as soon after finishing my prior novel. I'd written a novel called Desperate Endeavor, and I'd sold it to a publisher, and then we were in the process of bringing it out. And so this is Desperate Endeavor. Um, and Desperate Endeavor was a high energy space adventure. It was filled with world saving action. It had an enduring mystery. It had a main character who was trying to figure out why the aliens that we had run into had started a war, what it meant. Were we still in danger from them? He had to solve. Had to go through lots of clues and figure out. Oh, the war never ended. The aliens are just in a different phase of it. Humanity is in great danger. It's got to save humanity. So there are space battles and things like that. And that was a very high energy, fun story to write. Um, but I was done writing space battles for a while. I just wanted to be, a lot calmer. So I was looking for a story to tell that I thought was important and what still didn't have any explosions or people blowing things up. It was people making in choices that were important in their lives and important in other people's lives. So I came up with this idea of a coming of age story, an adventure story that the young people of three different species who happen to know each other and interact with each other had. Um, because one species was really not a nice people to be around. And they needed to be better. But instead of making it a let's go and have a war about it, how about we have young people figure out that they and each of them like each other better, and we can do better. And so it made it a very personal story. I selected three people to carry the story, and they had, loved ones and family and things like that. And it was also kind of a cautionary tale, because in part of the story, well, what partly that kicks off the story is one of the people is trying to find out if some rumors that she's heard about a miracle worker in this other community was really real. And so she goes and interviews the guy, and it turns out he is real, but she doesn't know it. She doesn't believe it. And she inadvertently asks for a miracle. Now, it's cautionary tale because you got to be really careful when you ask for a miracle from a miracle worker, because he grants it. He grants it in such a way that nobody knows what the hell is going on? And it completely upends her society, but gives them a chance at redemption and to become a better people. And they sort of, not to give anything away, but they have to come up to they have to become better people, or they're not going to survive this encounter. And so at the end of the novel, I hope everybody will think that they actually did.
Okay. Prophetic stuff. I talked to an old high school classmate of mine who's heavily into all this stuff, but on the real side, and on the real side, and some of the stuff he tells me, I haven't interviewed him yet. Some of the stuff he tells me, there are three different groups of aliens here. Been here a long time. One is kind of a neutral kind, and one is a very positive and nice, and one ain't so nice.
Mm.
So I'm listening to you, and I'm saying there's some real elements of stuff that I'm hearing. Uh, anyway, uh, uh, um, so I'm looking at the cover of Tears of a Thousand Years. It's beautiful and evocative and provocative. What does this symbolize?
Well, I was at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books this summer, a few months ago, and um, a lady wandered by and looked at the cover and said, "Oh, is this a book on astronomy?" And I said, "No, no, it's a novel." And I said, "Oh, but what my two characters are looking at up there in the sky is the Cat's Eye Nebula." And she says, "I know, I'm an astronomer." Oh, okay. But these are two of the characters of the novel, Anya and Siskali, two different species, and this is kind of captures that they're on their adventure to know each other better and to make a change in the world. And they're just looking at the night sky and knowing there are a lot of intelligent species out there that are worth knowing. And so that's just a moment capture of the journey that they're on. Um, I I kind of love this cover.
Oh, it's a great cover. You know, I mean, really evocative and provocative. Um, I like it. Um, are there deeper themes without giving anything away, hidden beneath the adventure and the fantasy elements which you write about? Deeper themes?
There are some deeper things, and I tread on them kind of lightly because I want people to have their own journey and go wherever they go with the story and just enjoy the story. But there will be themes of you are responsible for your actions, and that even if someone is on the wrong path, there's a chance for redemption. You can change course. You can redeem yourself, and also um, there are themes of grace and empathy and individual transformation that takes place in the novel. And I don't make it heavy-handed. I try not to make it heavy-handed. It's a fun read, and our characters just wind up getting to places where they pretty much transform into the better part of themselves.
Is there a message do you hope younger readers are going to take from this?
Uh, yeah, I think the very following is that your actions matter. It's whatever you choose to do when you act on something, you are making a forward step in that direction, and it matters. Many young people go through a phase of saying, "Oh, nothing I do matters. Everything is terrible. There's no way that," and that's not true. We all have the power to make a difference. And so that's kind of an underlying theme that message that I want to get out in that novel.
Powerful stuff. Powerful
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
at the end of the novel, I will say one of the characters, a lady named Sophia, is talking with our miracle worker, and he asks if her race has changed, and she says yes, no, we've you know we made the mistake of thinking that the other was not us. We know better now. We will never make that mistake again. We'll make other mistakes, but not that one. And so
okay.
my beta
Uh,
readers have kind of stuck on that one a time or two and thought it was, really powerful.
it is powerful. It is powerful. Especially anything you can reach younger younger minds that need reaching is important. As a recent professor at Rutgers, I've worked with a lot of, and I continue to mentor students, and it's so funny. Uh, you know, I started mentoring this wonderful, amazing sophomore student. Every year I get a different student for a lot of years, in addition to my teaching. And her name is Aditi, and she's great. And we were talking, we getting to know each other, and we were supposed to meet once a month. We decided there's so much chemistry, we were going to meet once a week, and we did, which is great for a kid to set aside time. But the first session we spent, and all of a sudden it hit me like somebody gently slapped me in the face. And I said, "Oh my God." She said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, but I just realized I'm 60 years older than you, 6 decades older, yet we are on the same level, communicating. We're as if the 60 years doesn't exist." It was very nice. And I said, "That's a compliment to you, you know." Anyway, okay, let's talk about a little bit about firefighter and paramedic and stuff. Um, your career and the stuff you've done there, would what would you say is, and maybe it's what you just said, having written, that manual that FEMA used, what are some of the most rewarding things you've taken away from that experience, which is huge?
It I feel very honored to have been able to have this career and to be able to reach out and to help people, and to help myself throughout the time. Um, one of the one of the things that I learned, and as a more way to be an effective human being myself, I learned through all my training was something that actually the TV show Ted Lasso in the TV show says something that is so important, and that I've tried to teach each of my trainees as well. Um, he's talking about something, and he says he drove by a sign that said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And that I had never crystallized it that way, but that makes perfect sense to me. It says we often think we know what's going on. We jump to a conclusion, and then we hold on to that conclusion, and it doesn't serve us very well. And what I learned in the fire department is that you never know what you're being sent into. You have to find out all the information. So go in without preconceptions. You go in with a big knowledge base, but when I'm seeing a person who's a patient, what's going, don't think I know what's going on, because either they're a homeless person or they're in a particular situation. Use that as information, but don't make any decisions about it. Ask questions. Be curious. Ask curious questions. What's going on? Find out. Build a build an understanding based on being curious, asking questions. And then when you've got enough information, enough answers, it's much easier to make a decision about an action, what to do next, how to assist this person, or how to make this situation better. Um, how to shore up a hillside so it doesn't fall on the houses below, or how to divert a stream of water, or how to keep a car from blowing up that's been in a bad accident against the side of a freeway, or you don't know what you're going to decide to do until you got enough information. But then you can feel confident and act. And that was an attitude and a way of dealing with the world that I taught all the generations of paramedics that over a 30-year career I wound up teaching this job. So that would have been probably the most basic that I learned, for my own life, and then I've tried to pass along.
I can't even process, the 30 years and the stuff you've learned and did, and how that changes your whole perspective on life and things you're doing. I mean, wow. I mean, they have by the way, there's all kinds of TV shows, all kinds of, paramedics and all kinds of stuff. And you're right, Smack. Boy, you could tell stories about that. My goodness. It's endless. You know what,
Yes,
son? It's endless. I want to go off topic. I forewarned you.
you
Uh,
did.
I did. I just want to go off topic. A couple of cute questions that I like. One of them I borrowed from Barbara Walters. who's an idol of mine. So here goes question one. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with. It could be one, two, three, none, whatever.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Um, if we're talking current living, I would be so honored to have dinner with Barack Obama and Michelle. They are, I think, amazing human beings. Um, and the humanity of that person and working together as a couple, the humanity of that they possess has has always just filled me with awe. So dinner with the Obamas.
Great, 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 great. Now I'm not that far away from you because one of my little things is Franklin and Eleanor.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Uh, Same type of power couple, but a little bit different in its implementation, but nevertheless, so it's not that far removed from you. Uh, Great, great answer. The next little off-topic question, I like this for a lot of reasons. Some of your favorite movies?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Groundhog Day is one of them.
Oh yeah, my God.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
I can see that one over and over again. In fact, when you just see it once, it does feel like you've seen it over and over again. It is a movie where the main character is really a real piece of work, and no one would want to have him as a friend. And he gets to play this. He gets to experience the same day over and over again, and he figures out a little bit at a time that this is he can become a better person and he'll like himself better. And by the end of the movie, I like him a lot. And it's okay with me that he rides off to the sunset with Andy McDowell. I forgive him for that because
Yep.
you know
Yep. Me
yeah.
too.
So that one of that just very powerful.
Correct. And I agree with you. That's right up there with me. I've seen it a million times. I love it. Brilliant premise, truly a brilliant,
Hmm.
brilliant, brilliant. And it's just redemption, all the way
Yes.
around. It's such a classical case of redemption. And Phil Connors is a hero of mine, and to watch him evolve and and uh,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
and I love that restaurant scene when he's eating a million donuts, and all that food, and he's shoving it in. And then he says to Andy McDowell, I'm God. She said, I've had, 30 years of Catholic education. Trust me, you're not God. I know the movie basically all the
You do.
lines.
Oh, it's filled with great lines. It's filled with great lines. Um, and I also like The Sound of Music. It was an okay movie until I became a father and I had my own son, and suddenly the family aspects of that movie, being in a time of great troubles, and um, again, the humanity of the people involved just captured me. And that was one movie that my 6-year-old and 7-year-old and 8-year-old and then 10-year-old son and then 11-year-old and 12-year-old son, every year he wanted to watch that movie with me. So yeah, so there's
That's so funny you said that because that it's so funny you said that because that is up here for me too. And I even have literally in the CD I'm listening to, I made it myself. I even had that music called The Lendler when Christopher Plummer and Julie Andrews they start to dance at that
yes.
party. And the dance is called The Lendler. It's an old Austrian kind of a folk song and stuff. And that's when
Ah,
they first looked into each other's eyes and realized that they loved each other, but that was a million miles away at that point in time. I love that movie. I used to take back in the 60s, all my first dates to see that movie. I had a lot of first dates. Uh, um, uh, but anyway, what's really interesting is 2 weeks ago, Monday, I interviewed Lindsay Krause, an Oscar nominee and an amazing actress. Uh, it's amazing how we even got to her, but we had a marvelous, it was 2.5 hours we spent together just BSing and then the interview. The point being, her father, Russell Krauss, and his partner, Howard Lindsay, wrote the book, The Sound of Music,
Oh,
and won a Tony for that way back. And it's funny. I do my research as a journalist. I learned how to do the right things because I worked for a billionaire, and I read all about Lindsay and studied her, and embedded in everything I read and saw and stuff. She don't talk about that movie much, so I left it untouched. In other words, I guess she doesn't talk about the movie, and I love it. It is what it is, and I don't know. It was a terrible time, and I don't know if it picked enough of how terrible the time it was.
I,
It
I grew
was,
up. I'm not that much younger than you, although I tell people I'm 45 and I just look
huh,
old. But I you know li we both lived through those times, and when I was growing up as in San Fernando Valley, my next door neighbor was an Eastern European family, and he had numbers tattooed on his arm, and and he didn't want to talk about it. Yeah, but over time we got to know the
yeah,
family, and I got to know the
nice,
story, and
nice,
and those are very, this is very, those were very important things to know. They're still very important things to
correct,
know. Yeah,
correct, truly,
yeah.
truly. And it's funny. I get these reels popping up every day, and they're reels about people who've come out of that period of time on both sides, as a
Hmm.
victim and as not a victim, and people who've done things to help. And it blows my mind literally every day. And I actually started saving. I do some screen prints and all that, and I put it into a file. The names of these amazing people, from priests and people
Hmm.
who sacrificed and did amazing things to save children in particular, and people. Um,
Yes.
so I literally last week started saving all these. They're fascinating stories that
Hmm.
will disappear. Uh, uh, all right, moving on. But it's so funny you said Sound of Music. Because it's so funny you said that because I love the movie. Okay,
It's kind of scary. We might be brothers from a different mother. I mean,
it could be. Part of me. I did some 23andMe way back. Uh, it said some ridiculously not. It's some ridiculously random thing that I may be part Native American. And I just thought I'm Russian, but maybe I don't know how that could ever have happened. But it's cool. Maybe it's part of the deja vu. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Um, okay. Um, you taught, and this is an interesting question based on contemporary times. You taught disaster preparedness, and almost every day there's another disaster. And a lot of it is man-made because we're messing around with the climate, and this is what we're getting. Are we better prepared these days, Glenn, in the world of disaster preparedness?
oh boy, that is a question. That question is kind of nuanced, but I would say in one way we are better prepared because with today's um, interconnectedness and technology, the ability when an area gets hit or is about to be hit by a disaster, make it your tornado, your whatever, something that covers a broader area, not just like a freeway overpass collapse or something like that, but something that affects it. Our ability and the ability of authorities to communicate with the public are many more than they used to be. I mean, there was a time. So there was a very famous dam breach in, I want to say, 1928, in the Santa Clarita Valley of California. Big dam failed. 50 million foot acres, heading down the valleys, heading towards the ocean, 50 miles away, and the only way that they could get the word out is the telephone operators staying at their station, calling people up on the telephone, waking them up, saying, "Yeah, there's heading your way. There's danger
Wow.
heading your way. Get the kids out. Get the family out. Go to high ground." And so, and then police officers, in their cars running around screaming at the top of their lungs, get out of the way. Things. Um, so that's a century ago. Um, these days, we all have our smartphones. We all have. We're talking on a computer network, you and I. The ability to get word out is so much better now. If we have warning, if people that whose responsibility it is to figure out that there is a problem brewing, are on their job, on their pace, then we can get the word out and we can get people, starting to move. Um, and by and large, people still believe in government and still believe certain things. And when that kind of word goes out, people act and people react. So all by itself, that's critical. In terms of people individually, making plans to deal with an emergency, to deal with a disaster, it's kind of hit and miss. It's very much compared. It's how people feel about planning for the future. Um, but over and over, what I will tell people is that do three things. One, have at least half a tank of gas in one of your cars. A half a tank of gas will take you more than 100 miles down the road, and for most conceivable disasters that hit the United States, at least. If you're 100 miles down the road, you're back in territory where the services work, the gas stations have electricity and can pump. You've got shelter that is functioning, things like that. So if you can just get 100 miles away from the epicenter of the disaster, you've done almost everything you need to do. Have a little bit of uh, have a little go bag kit that set up and grab real fast. Get important documents that are close to hand that you want to take out of the house. Medications, a little bit of money. That's all the basic all the basic planning you have to do to probably weather 95% of the disasters that happen to us on this continent. Now, you might, come back and your house is completely burned to the ground, or has been, covered in lava, or fallen into the sea, or whatever. But that's just material things. What's important is you, your family, your loved ones, um, and so get out of the way of the disaster. Let the rescuers, go in and do what they need to do or what they can do, and live to fight another day.
Perfect. 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 Um, yeah, I can't even stuff that happens in California. I can't even the fires and I mean flood, all that stuff. I just can't even conceive of that and all that. And I'm in a very little secure place here in Jersey. I'm 20 miles due west of the Jersey Shore, the ocean, but there's no mountains, there's no streams, and it's spoiled. And I was in a tornado once in 1965. Before I went to Rutgers, I went to the University of Toledo, and it was the spring of '65. It was close to final exam time, so my fraternity brothers and I, we wanted to release our tensions, so we hopped into a car and we drove to this theater. There was a new movie coming out called Mary Poppins. So we all went to see it, and by the time we got to that theater, this it had gotten really, really dark, and the wind was blowing, and we parked, like far away, and everybody, my five fraternity brothers, they all ran, into the theater. I was so curious that I stayed outside watching, and the big cement stanchions started to blow. I mean, the wind, it was, and before I could even comprehend, I was lifted up and thrown through the theater doors. And It's funny. At the time, I had a girlfriend whose father owned a bowling alley. And they had 32 lanes, and after the tornado hit, they had 16 lanes. Um, and this
Mhm.
was a series of tornadoes that had struck the Midwest and killed a lot of people. And as I write, just another, a few hundred feet here or there, and I could have been in the land of Oz easily. Um, but that's all kind of meant to be.
And,
Okay, back to
and that experience never left you. Yes.
oh, never left me. It's
Nature
there.
is so powerful. Yep. Yes.
Never left me. It's there. And I don't. I'm so grateful. I mean, I write about that little brief experience, but I remembered it really well. Um, so moving on, you're a trained scuba diver, and you've toured literally the continent by motorcycle. Wow. Um, what attracts you to this kind of adventure? I wouldn't do that stuff.
Oh, maybe I can talk you into coming with me.
Oh,
Hmm.
that'll never happen.
We'll talk. I actually, yeah. I don't, I don't think of myself as adventurous or seeking adventure. Um, Actually, I just like people. I really do. When I look at myself, who I am, I like people. I will talk to strangers. I'll walk around the corner to see what's down the next street that I haven't seen before. It's curiosity, and it was the summer of 1976, and I had purchased a motorcycle from a friend, a big BMW 750 touring bike, and here I am on the West Coast, and in a month it was going to be the 200th anniversary of our nation, and I decided I wanted to go to Washington D.C. and be there on July 4th.
Wow.
1976. So I put together the motorcycle and got my gear together and talked to a couple of friends to go on their motorcycles, and we just set out. Didn't really know what route we were going to take. Got some maps from AAA and basically got advice along the road. Says, yeah, you go 100 miles down this road and then switch to that interstate. And so I spent 6 weeks on the road, basically just meeting people and seeing the country with no overriding, plan or need, just and met some wonderful people along the way. Um, Rode through Winslow, Arizona, and stood on the pegs of the motorcycle,
That the
yelling
Eagles?
that
Is
song
that
out.
the
Yeah,
Eagles?
the Eagle song. I was standing on the corner in Winslow,
Oh,
Arizona.
wow.
Sang the song as we drove on through. Um, Made it, broke down. The bike broke down in Ohio, and I got to spend 2 days at a little motel and until the local BMW dealer had me up and running again, and made it to Washington D.C. and just the energy was just amazing. And from that time, I was hooked, and then I would spend every summer on the road for a little while. And So that was just it. You mentioned I was also a scuba diver. Yeah, when I thought I was going to be a marine biologist and an oceanographer, I picked up what I thought was a skill of the trade. I went and got trained as a scuba diver and did some wreck diving off of the coast of Catalina and things like that. And Then I just kept on doing it as a hobby. So most things I've done, I thought, well, this will help me out on my, the next thing I want to do down the road. And if they were fun, enjoyable, or really spoke to my soul, I kept doing them. There's something about being 30 feet under the water in the ocean that is awe-inspiring. Just it's almost a Zen moment.
I mean, it's like you're in outer space, but you're in deep inner space. You know,
Yes.
I can only imagine. I'd never do it, but I can only imagine. Um,
I am so glad you said that because I think I mentioned that most of my experiences wind up in my writing. Well, my scuba diving experiences and my experiences with compression decompression show up in
hold it
my
higher.
space novel.
Hold
Yeah,
it higher. Okay.
my
Okay.
space novel, Desperate Endeavor, um, where I have a trick for how the people in their fighter ships, in their spaceships, weather really high periods of acceleration and cross acceleration, and I do them embedded in water. And I just used my scuba diving experience in um, going down. You go down 33 feet, and you're one atmosphere, greater in pressure. You go down, so I wrote that into the novel just as part of how they do it in space,
Wow.
and a lot of things creep into my novels that way.
Which is a
Just
great segue. Which is we touched on this briefly. My feelings about a little bit about writing. Both my novels were 5 years sitting in this chair. My first one 20 years ago. I don't talk about that a lot. Fishing
mm,
Water, Casablanca, blah, blah, blah. But it taught us 5 years. What and I love this because it's part of our group, Bold Authors, and as I interview a lot of our compatriots in the things, what's the hardest part for you of writing a novel?
oh, the hardest part changes sometimes over time, but the the hardest part is always I kind of talk to my characters and ask them where they want to go next. And um, yeah, when I'm doing my nonfiction writing, of course, it's an entirely different mindset. But I feel like my characters are kind of invested in their story, and so I get their input. Sometimes they want to go places where I don't want to go. So I've I might wind up writing a scene two different ways, and now I have to decide which one I'm going to throw away. So that could be the hardest part, being at a fork in the road and not knowing, which direction I'm going to go. Sometimes I get so hung up on that my um, workaround is I jump to another part of the novel and write some other
Is that
and write some
right?
other scene or that I do know about, and
Wow.
then I'll trickle back and try to fight with the problematic scene another time. No, I never I never let myself get too frustrated. I don't want I do not want forward momentum to come to a stop. So if my forward momentum is kind of coming to a stop because I can't make a decision, just set that aside and jump to some other part of the story where I got a better idea what I want to do.
Wow.
That has worked for me pretty well so far.
So interesting. I don't budge 1 inch. I have an outline and that's it. And if I get, that's right, I'm on page 45, and I hit the wall, then I hit the wall, and that's happened to me. For 2 or 3 months. I couldn't write, and I know everything is outlined, but I mean, that's just where I am. I don't know if it's OCD. I don't know what the hell it is, and that's just the way I do it. But the fact that you can, I mean, I think that's great. You can stop here and then go there and do that. By the way, that's like you're making a movie because they jump all around.
Right.
They're different storyboards and they're jumping all over the place. But that's really interesting, Glenn. It's hard. I think my stuff is easy. I follow the recipe. I was trained to do that as a pharmacist, and RX actually means recipe in Latin, something like that. I don't know. something like that. But that's so interesting. Okay, last. By the way, well, this is going to be continued. When the next book comes out. We're gonna sit down and we'll delve a little bit more. Last thing, um, if you could leave readers with one lesson about life, what would it be?
Ah, well, life is a joy, but any particular day is uncertain. So, a little tongue in cheek, but really, when life is uncertain, you eat dessert first.
I like. Okay,
Have
did you just make that up?
I did. I just made
I'm writing that
life is
down.
uncertain.
I love that.
Life is uncertain. Eat dessert first.
Wow.
Go for the moment that will give you more energy to take on the rest of your day. Um, and 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 don't beat yourself up.
That's great. I love that. What a way to conclude chapter one.
Chapter one.
This is chapter one. This has been, I don't use this word a lot. I'm very judicious when I use this word. I actually copied it from the movie Norma Ray with Sally Field and Ron Liebman. But every once in a while, I do an interview that has been sumptuous. So this interview has been sumptuous. The fact that we're brothers in both authors is a powerful ingredient, and I never really. Now I'm getting to know you, and your life has been enchanting and fascinating, and it is the stuff that movies are made of. And I'm so glad we had this special time together to be continued.
Thank you, sir. I look forward. I feel very honored. I've had so much fun talking with you today, and I
Yeah.
like that this is only chapter one.
Chapter one, boom.
Chapter one.
And Neil Simon wrote chapter two. I like that movie. Actually, it's a good movie. I'm a movie person. Uh, uh, as I'm writing to Steven Spielberg as we speak, I want him to know that Tortoise is filled to the brim with references to movies because it's life and it's teaching, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, this is to be continued. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. Looking forward to the next time.
Yep,
And as always, let's be excellent to each other.
I like that too. Don't leave. I'm just going to stop recording.
Okay.